Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
New housing legislation in Ontario is causing an uproar. Critics worry it could lead to many evictions and an increase in homelessness in the province. Some were so upset about it that when Bill 60, as it's called, passed third and final reading in the Ontario legislature, protesters on Monday erupted in the chamber, halting proceedings.
You're putting people on the streets!
The legislation will allow landlords in the province to evict tenants who fail to pay rent within 7 days, slashing it from the current 14. It would also reduce the time renters have to appeal decisions by the landlord and tenant board in that province, and would require tenants to pay 50% of alleged rental arrears before they can raise any maintenance and safety issues. I'm Richard Southern, and today on The Big Story, the big uproar in Ontario over Bill 60. The Ford government in Ontario has said that the bill will unlock housing for, quote, responsible tenants and reduce the current backlog of cases at the landlord and tenant board. Critics obviously feel different, though. One of them is Marc Davignon. He is the co-chair of the Hamilton ACORN Association. Marc, thanks for being with us here today on The Big Story.
I'm glad to be here speaking with you today.
Marc, were you one of those protesters that got kicked out of the Ontario legislature over this?
I absolutely was kicked out of the legislature for raising my voice.
So tell us what you're against here with this bill. What upsets you about this bill that you felt the need to get turfed out of the Ontario legislature?
So this bill supposedly calls for the Spike and Delays Building Faster Act of 2025. It's a bill that fast tracks evictions and pushes thousands closer to homelessness.
Well, does it though? I mean, if the government says they're trying to target bad tenants, those who are behind on their rent. I mean, if I am behind on my rent, should I not be getting evicted?
I don't know any bad tenants. I know tenants who pay their rent and then struggle to feed themselves through the rest of the month. This bill is going to hit seniors, people with disabilities, single parents, and good tenants who can fall behind, often for the first time, because of illness, job loss, or other emergencies. And where in the past a tenant may have had the opportunity to remedy their situation, now their eviction is going to be fast-tracked and eased.
So, I mean, what's wrong with that, though, Marc?
What's wrong with it is that these are people who are having a tough time. They're living paycheck to paycheck. And if they run into some difficulty with their landlord, they have almost no time to secure legal help or emergency support to cover their arrears. It's the most vulnerable who are going to be hit the hardest.
I want to play you. I caught up with the Ontario Housing Minister, Rob Flack, after this bill passed. Mm-hmm. I want to play you a little bit of what the minister had to say, and we can discuss it after. Here's Ontario Housing Minister Rob Flack. Minister, there's a lot of opposition to this bill. You heard it in the legislature today. People are worried it's going to tilt the balance of power more towards the landlords, make it easier to evict tenants. Are you hearing the criticism about this?
Well, I heard it in the House today for sure, but I don't agree with it because we're creating balance in the landlord-tenant system. And the bottom line is we're creating more affordable units for people to buy because we're creating more supply. With more supply comes lower rents. Every protection is in place that was there before. This is about bringing balance, restoring balance, and creating more supply, frankly, to get lower rents lower in this province.
How can you say every protection is still there when you're lessening the time that tenants have to pay their rent?
We're speeding up the process, tightening the system so landlord-tenant board hearings can be heard faster.
But you can't say that all the rights that the tenants had before are still there with this bill.
Well, I can, because they're still there. They can appeal if they don't like what has happened. Look, this legislation deals with people that are the bad actors, bad landlords, bad tenants. The vast majority of Ontario renters live by the rules. They pay their rent. They pay it on time. This is about creating balance of the landlord-tenant board, day in and day out so we can speed up adjudication. And look, we've doubled the adjudicators in this province, 40 to 80. We've added dollars for administrative process, and we've increased fines to bad actors, bad landlords.
So what do you make of that, Marc?
First of all, if it's about restoring balance, why did they forego public commentary and consultation? If they think that only hearing from one side is balanced, I don't think we have the same definition of balance. I think that the people of Ontario and the members of ACORN had a 500-person province-wide tenant meeting. We had multi-city Halloween actions. We had had over 130 organizations sign up to an open letter against this bill. Arguments in 2018 when they put an end to rent control in new buildings. And let me ask you, has supply increased since 2018? Have prices dropped since 2018? In those cases and in this one, it will only increase the evictions, it will only increase homelessness, and it will only increase prices.
The bill, this is an omnibus bill. It does a lot. Some other provisions include, Marc, the landlord no longer needing to offer a tenant compensation if they want to take back their property for their own use. Tell us a little bit about that and how you feel about that.
So in the circumstance now, if a landlord wants to take back the property for their own personal use, they have to pay the tenant 1 month's rent or equivalent. Now, under the strictures of the new Bill 60, so long as the landlord provides 4 months' notice, the tenant is not due any such compensation. And under the current system, under the current situation, as we live here in Ontario, I think everybody knows that 4 months' notice to find a new place to exist is short to impossible. The tenants need that month's extra payment to help cushion them in this transition.
What else is in this bill? Because there is a lot, like we say. What else is in this bill that you felt the need to go down and make your voice heard today, Marc?
Well, there are a ton of issues in this bill relating to non-housing matters, but in short, the bill will cut eviction notice periods from 14 to 7 days if you're behind on your rent by as short as a day or as little as $1. It will cut appeal times from 30 to 15 days, and that's a circumstance where tenants are often scrambling to get access to legal support. Try to find a legal support who can come to your side in just 15 days, whereas previously they knew they had 30 days. It's gonna, as we said, remove compensation for landlords who are taking the unit back for personal use. It's gonna block tenants from raising new issues such as harassment or chronic disrepair on the day of their hearings. It's gonna say that tenants can't defend themselves at the LTB unless they pay 50% of their arrears, which pointedly, because the LTB has not ruled yet, they may not actually owe. It's going to make it easier for landlords to get away with pressuring tenants into signing away their leases with N11 voluntary evictions. Tenants often sign N11 voluntary evictions because they're misled by the landlords who say that it is necessary for them to do so. These are seniors. These are people with language difficulties. These are people who are newcomers, and they often don't understand that when a landlord shows up and says you have to sign this, that is not, in fact, legally the case.
You talk about those who, will get evicted under this new legislation who are a day behind on rent. But, the reality is we've talked to a lot of landlords who are struggling to deal with those who are many months behind on rent. And they feel they have little or no recourse now or to get those tenants evicted. It takes too long, they say. Should the tenants, should the landlords not have more rights here, do you think, Marc?
I don't think at this time landlords have too many rights. I don't know any landlords who have to decide between food and rent. I don't know any landlords who have to decide between paying their rent or getting their medication because they are seniors or disabled.
Were you able to talk to anyone when you were at the Ontario legislature? Have you reached out to the government on this, Marc?
ACORN has created a petition with over 25,000 signatures, and we have advanced it to the housing minister. But again, the government chose to forego public consultation on this issue, and as such, they were not taking comments from anybody that they did not select preemptively.
It's not just activists like Marc that have made a big hubbub about this bill. The opposition at Queen's Park in Toronto has been very vocally opposed as well. Adil Samji is the Liberal housing critic and an MPP in Ontario.
A mean-spirited bill that ignores the injustices that have been facing renters. And more than that, it ignores the failures of this government to address the root causes of the market failure that we are seeing in the housing sector. So just to put things in perspective, if you are even a day late on paying your rent, you're out on the street. And to put that into perspective, imagine, and who hasn't done this? Imagine being a single day late on a credit card bill. And imagine the bank being able to come in and confiscate your credit cards and shut down your bank accounts. That is essentially the sweeping powers that this legislation gives to landlords and to bad actors in the middle of an affordability crisis. And so fundamentally, our opposition to this bill rests on a couple things. We need balance. There are bad faith landlords out there. There are bad faith tenants. We do need to find justice at the Landlord and Tenant Board. We do need to move away from being the worst province in the entire country for home building. We do need to find a way to address Doug Ford's failed leadership on housing and to get our home building kickstarted. This legislation does none of those things. And all it does instead is it puts all of the blame exclusively on tenants and threatens to put them out on the street. And
it's not just 1 day behind rent. There are, tenants months behind rent. Why shouldn't the landlord have a quicker way to evict those people?
In my constituency office, there's no doubt about it. I get tenants coming in who are struggling with bad faith landlords, and I get landlords coming in who are struggling with bad faith tenants. What we're here is asking for justice. We're asking to fix the major issues that are happening in the Landlord and Tenant Board and to address the rules so that there is balance and fairness for both sides. Bill 60 does none of those things. All it does is it points the finger at every single renter and tenant of whom the vast majority are acting in good faith, who are struggling to make ends meet, who are struggling in an affordability crisis. It points the finger at every single renter and tenant in the province and says, you're at fault, every single one of you is going to pay. And Ontario Liberals believe that that is wrong.
But making the case for the controversial new law was again Ontario Housing Minister Rob Flack, who told the Ontario legislature that the government is trying to stand up for landlords.
To have the confidence to rent out their buildings. Bad actors, a small percentage of this entire landlord-tenant situation are with bad actors. The vast majority respect the rents, respect their agreements. We are creating balance in the system. Think about the small operator, the small provider that now has confidence to rent out more properties. And guess what, Speaker? Bottom line is we're creating capacity, rents are coming down. Speaker, the plan is working. Bill 60 makes sense. We've saved and protected every protection in this legislation. Speaker, we're going to stick to the plan.
The ruling Ford government in Ontario rushed the bill through the legislature in about 2 weeks without any public consultations. It was able to do that and pass it into law thanks to its large majority. That was the big story. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this conversation. You can always find us on X at TheBigStoryFPN, or you can send us an email at hello@thebigstorypodcast.ca. Remember, you can get new episodes of The Big Story every morning, Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to leave a comment or share with a friend. I'm Richard Southern. Thanks so much for listening.